Hi, my name is Rebotile Kgatla. I was born and raised in Limpopo at a place called Bochum. I grew up in a Christian family whereby both my parents are pastors. And growing up, it was kind of difficult because all we had to do, it was just to trust God, even now. Because all the time when you were in a bad situation or when you're not feeling well, they will tell you that just pray and just trust God and everything will be okay. So I did my matric or my high school in Dendron Secondary School in Limpopo also, and after completing my matric, I came here to Pretoria to study. I started to become sick in 2014 when I was, doing my final matric. So I told my sister that let's just go to the hospital, because by then I didn't have medical aid. So we went to Steve Biko Hospital, and when I arrived there, they told me that after checking me and running some tests, that I have endometriosis. Because during my matric, I was bleeding. I had menstrual bleeding. It was too much. I would bleed for 10 days. Sometimes it will go on for the whole month. So when I arrived at Steve Biko, they told me that I have endometriosis, and they told me that I had to do an operation. I did my first operation, and it was not successful because 2016, fast forward, I went to Medforum and they did the second operation. And I was, at first, when I came here to Pretoria, I went to TUT and I had studied nature conservation. I had to drop out because I couldn't do anything, because I was always bleeding, I was always in pain. The menstrual pain were so very painful. So 2016, I did my second operation. It was in March, and after my second operation, it was difficult because I had to be in and out of the hospital. 2017, fast forward, went again to Medforum. I remember it was in January, and when I arrived there, the doctor told me that the two operations that you did, they were actually not successful because the endometriosis kept on coming back. Actually, it grows inside of you and they have to operate it, cut it. So 2017, I did my third operation in January. And to my surprise, after my operation, the doctor told me that on your right ovary we found a big cyst, a huge cyst. The cyst, it was called teratoma, and inside of the cyst they found hair and teeth. Sometimes they could find maybe a baby or something weird. So when my parents heard what they found inside, they were shocked, and they kept on telling me that you should pray because this thing is serious. The doctor took out the cyst, and he also took out a mass of endometriosis on my right ovary. It was in January. After that, nothing changed. I kept on bleeding. I kept on being sick. I couldn't go to varsity. I couldn't do anything. So July came and I was transferred to Femina Hospital. So I did my fourth operation in July at Femina Hospital, whereby the doctor told me that the doctor that did an operation in January, he did make a mistake. He cut half of your ovary when he was removing a cyst. It was a huge cyst, but he did cut half of your ovary. I couldn't believe it. And then he told me that the only thing that we could do, because before he did the operation, they did an MRI, so they could see that something was wrong. So he told me that the only option is to remove another mass of endometriosis, and again we could remove your right ovary. So my parents didn't agree. They told him that Rena, we trust in God and we know that all will be well. So I did my 4th operation in Femina Hospital, and after I decided to drop out of varsity and just rest and look after myself. The following year, 2018, came and I was feeling a little much better. I went back to varsity and I did register for electrical engineering. Everything was going well until I went back to square one. I was admitted again in Louis Pasteur. I did my 5th operation to remove endometriosis, because the more you bleed, it's the more it grows. If you bleed more, it grows more. So 2018, I did my 5th operation. It was difficult because I thought I could finish my studies. I dropped out of nature conservation because I couldn't continue, because it was difficult for me. Even at home it was difficult because I could be in and out of the hospital for almost the whole year. So I did my 5th operation. They removed the endometriosis and I was a little bit much better. 2019 came and I went back to Medforum. And when I arrived there, the doctor told me, actually it was a surgeon, he told me that due to multiple operations that you did, they did damage your appendix. So he had to remove my appendix. That's when I did another operation. It was in September and I stayed for the whole month. The first week of September, they did remove the appendix. And after that, I was not feeling okay still. I wasn't recovering well. And the following week, the doctor did run some tests and he found out that I had gallstones. They had to remove my gallbladder. Went back to theater. They removed my gallbladder. That in total, it's 7 operations. I'm still young, but I have done so many operations, stayed for the whole month. And after removing the gallbladder, he discovered that also another cyst grew on my right ovary. So they removed that cyst again. I remember I went back to varsity because I couldn't write some of the exams and the tests. So when I went back, they did allow me to write. I was the only one who wrote, and my results didn't come out. I remember when my results didn't come out, I decided that life is no longer meaningful because I'm going through a lot. My parents are pastors, they're praying for me every day, but I'm not recovering. I'm still in the same situation and nothing seems to be okay. So there are pills that I take when I'm in pain and when I'm bleeding, and you're supposed to only take 2 or 3 because they knock you out. So I took 7 pills because I was tired of life. So I went back to the hospital. I was admitted again and I was kept there because they wanted to make sure that I don't kill myself and make sure that the bleeding goes down. Me staying at the hospital, I remember the doctor calling the psychologist and telling her that you should talk to her because this child has been through hell. So when I explained everything to the psychologist, she told me that you're supposed to go to a psychiatric hospital because I don't think you're gonna be fine. You should go there and rest, and they should give you medication so that you could be okay. So I didn't go because I wanted to go back to school and finish everything and be done. 2020 came. January, I remember telling God that, God, I've been through some difficulties. You know, going back, I remember in 2017 after doing the operation whereby they found a teratoma, I also did take some pills because I was fed up. My life was no longer nice, and I lost a bursary because I couldn't go back to varsity. So I lost a bursary, I lost a scholarship. So 2020 came. I thought everything was gonna be fine. My parents kept on praying for me every day, but nothing changed. So when 2020 came, I went back to the hospital again because the bleeding kept on coming back. And me, I was told that if I do many operations again, I'm gonna die, because I did so many operations, and the operations which are sensitive. So when 2020 came, I went back. I told myself that if I die, let me die. It will be much better, because already I've wasted time. I've wasted my parents' money. I've wasted everything in life. So when 2020 came, I did another operation, and they removed a mass of endometriosis. It was situated on my right abdomen, and it affected my leg. So also they found a cyst. When they remove endometriosis, in my case, it's a mass that they find a cyst, so they had to remove the cyst. So they did another operation, and it was difficult for me, it was difficult for my parents. I remember my dad came to the hospital, and he told me that it's high time whereby you tell yourself that everything is gonna be okay. It's high time whereby you pray for yourself, because we've been praying for you, we've been telling God, we have been pleading with God, we have done almost everything. We have supported you, but nothing seems to be okay. So after that, I remember I was sitting in a ward at Medforum with this other lady, and we started talking, and I told her about my story, and she was like, so many operations, you're still young, but you still have a bright future ahead of you. And those words, they really uplifted me. I remember listening to TD Jakes talking about the woman who had an issue of blood. And when I compared myself to that woman, I said, if Jesus healed that woman, he can still heal me. With him, all things are possible. And I told God that, God, my parents are doing crusades every day. They're going out, preaching the word every day. And I'm kind of ashamed in my family because nothing seems to be okay with my life. I'm way behind in terms of my studies. My body is weak because I did so many procedures on one body. And after that, I was discharged in February. They did the procedure in February. And March, I went back again to the hospital. I was bleeding again. The bleeding came back. And immediately when the bleeding comes back, I lose hope, because I tell God that, God, I told you, but though that this thing must go away. But why do I keep on going back? Why do I keep being in the same positions? My peers are far ahead in life, but here I am, still in one place, still, nothing seems to be okay. So I remember the doctor who did the procedure whereby they gave me blood and they they inserted some tubes, because they did colonoscopy. Colonoscopy, they check into your colon that if everything is still fine. So he actually told me that you have done so many operations. Your report it's sad because you are in the same place. I can tell you one thing that many people are not going to tell you, especially doctors, is that you just have to trust God. And he told me that just have hope and know that the pain that you are in, it will end soon. And after him telling me those words and being in the hospital, I remember I've written my exams the previous year, and in this year 2020 I was supposed to receive the results of what I've written. And when I opened my results, to my surprise, you're supposed to pass, especially when you are writing an exam. Your pass mark is supposed to be 50, but mine was 49. I thought I was bewitched. I thought, what's happening in my life? But one thing that woke me up and one thing that made me to be strong is the words of TD Jakes saying that God can change any situation. If he managed to heal a lady who went to different doctors like me, who went through life whereby life was no longer meaningful like me, then he's still the same God. I remember I was telling God that, God, I'm someone who at my church I will stand in front of people and we have a mission and a vision. I will read that, and I was telling God that, God, if I die, people are going to laugh at you. They're going to tell you that when you're not able. Every Sunday I make sure that I stand in front of people and I do this with all my heart. So why can't you change my situation once and for all? Nothing seems to be okay. Every time when I think maybe I'm going to number one, I go back to -1. I keep on going back. So I remember going home after being discharged from the hospital. I got into my room. I couldn't say anything. All I could do was just to cry. And that's when my breakthrough came. I was listening actually to a song by Joy Celebration, that Lord, I trust in you with all my heart. And that song revived my faith, revived something inside of my heart that, God, no matter what I go through, I still trust in you. I compared myself to Job, that Job lost almost everything, his sons, everything. People came to tell him that, since that you have lost everything, why don't you just curse your God and die? But I said to God, no, I'm not going to curse you and I'm not ready to die. I tried so many times to take pills and die, but nothing happened. Meaning that you have a great thing, a great future about my life. And I became fine. I became well. I remember in April, bleeding came again. It was a challenge, that thing that you have spoken, Mara. Here's a test. But to my surprise, I didn't go to the hospital because I was okay. It was a normal bleeding. I went to my menstrual cycle for 4 days and everything was fine. Till today, everything is fine. And that's when I realized that when we speak, God listens and the devil also, he's listening. But immediately when the devil listens, he will try to throw something into your mind and remind you that, look back, since 2015 you have done so many operations. So I don't think that you're going to be fine. But also God will also come and say, with my stripes you are healed. I made you and I know you. The Bible says he knew us before we were even born. So one thing that really uplifted me, it's also my parents' prayers, and also telling myself, coming to my senses that me too, I shall overcome this. And going through what I went through, it's just but a test for me to at the end to stand up and say, I have conquered, and at the end all is well. If you have a problem or if you have an issue like me, just know that God knows, and it's not the end of the world. Surgery, it's painful. It's very painful, whereby sometimes you're unable to go to the toilet when you come back from surgery, but all you have to know is that you are strong and God has a purpose about your life, and you will overcome every mountain that you are facing. All you have to do is just to speak and come to your senses and believe that all things are possible through Christ. Hi, my name is Rebotile Kgatla and I've been through the most.